Barangay ba? Ang barangay ba is helpful? Do you go to barangay for help?
Yes. Oh, so yung barangay, they're very helpful naman. So, there are some instances na it's within their jurisdiction. So, kahit naman wala, they assist. Actually, ang maganda sa barangay is that there's a sense of authority din do sa barangay. And syempre, yung sa lessee, mahiya din naman sila na pumupunta doon yung barangay and they're being subpoenaed by the barangay to attend a hearing, etc.
Hello! Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Passive Income Show. I'll be your host. This is Carl D. And tonight we have a very exciting topic, which is about a legal way how to handle tenants. Marami ba kayo dito na may mga problema kayo with your tenants, how to handle them legally para hindi naman kayo ma-stress, no? Our guest is a very good friend of mine. She is the founder of RUS Law Firm. She is a CPA lawyer and leads the firm's corporate and tax practice. Without further ado, we have an exciting topic tonight about 8 things that you need to know if you're a landlord. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Attorney Rachel Uy San Juan.
Hi! Hello, everyone!
Yes!
I hope everybody's keeping safe during this pandemic. I hope everyone is healthy.
Kamusta naman in the legal world right now, attorney?
For us in the corporate world, business is we're starting to do some projects already. Thankfully, the legal practice, at least for the corporate side, is not too affected by the pandemic. And actually, for the investors, there are still a lot of investors pouring their investments in the Philippines.
All right, attorney, so what do you have prepared for our audience tonight?
Okay, so we've prepared 8 points that every landlord should consider in leasing their property. Number 1, of course, is actually having a comprehensive lease contract. Because a lot of your problems may be avoiding by executing a comprehensive lease contract. So the lease contract should at least have these provisions. Number 1, terms of the lease, which are, of course, the monthly rent, the lease period. Number 2, use of the property, whether it's residential or commercial. Why? Because, of course, if the property is meant for residential only, you have to be clear to your tenant that it's really for residential purposes only, no? If it's for commercial, definitely you have to advise your tenant that they need to secure the necessary permits for that use. Third is whether the tenant can assign or sublease the property, because under the law, if you're silent in this provision, the tenant can actually sublease the property if there's no provision of prohibiting you from subleasing the property. So by law, if that's silent, if there is the provision sublease is silent, then the tenant could sublease it. So these are the things that you do before you enter into a contract of lease. But if you allow the tenant, your tenant to sublease the property, or if you fail to indicate in your contract that they cannot sublease the property, it's very possible that the person that will use the property will not be the same person that you conducted a due diligence on. So all of your work prior to entering the contract is futile. So it's useless, no? Fourth will be clause on pre-termination. When can you pre-terminate the contract? So, if there's non-payment of monthly rent, for example, yung misrepresentation. So, for example, if you're renting out a residential property, there's a representation that there would be only 5 members of the family that will live there. Then suddenly you discover that there are 5 individuals living in your property. Lastly would be a lockout provision. So, what is a lockout provision?
Mm-hmm.
A lockout provision is, this is a way for that the lessee will give an authority to the lessor or to the lessor's authorized representative to enter or break open the leased property and take immediate possession of the leased premises in case of termination of the lease. Another provision, the lockout provision, is that other than entering into the property, you're authorizing the lessor to take all the furnitures and fixtures in the property, sell it, or store it as a way of payment for the unpaid rent.
What's the concern of a sublease? Let's say naman na nagbabayad naman yung nagka-sublease. What are the possible concerns?
So for me, the number one risk is that you don't have a legal relationship with the sublease, with the sublessee. So it's difficult to control. It's difficult to impose the rules. Second, you do not know the contract between your lessee and the sublessee.
Okay.
So there might be some terms there that you're not agreeable and they're using your property, right?
I got it. Yeah.
Lastly, yun nga sinabi ko, before you enter into contract, nag-due deal ka with your lessee eh. Due deal mo yan. Pero itong sublessee, biglang they're using your property. Then you do not know kung sino ba sila, what are their business, what's their background. So, that's the risk there.
From a landlord, my tenant, 2 months nang hindi nagbabayad. Pero siya pa ang mayabang. How do you deal with that?
Okay. First is, actually, that's my second point. The second point is yung advance rent. What's the purpose of the advance rent or motivation behind the advance rent? It actually will cover it's also the duration and coverage of it will depend on your capacity or willingness to enforce collection.
Ade, kunwari, first month, hindi nagbayad. Ano yung ba yung parang step by step? First month, reminder lang. Letter. Just, kasi nga, depende dun sa palugid mo eh. So, for example, your advance is 2 months. So, in your head, you just have 2 months to collect the arrears, no? If 1 month lang yung advance rate mo, 1 month lang dapat yon. So, you have to be firm. So, kahit first week, 1 week pa lang na naglalapse, make a reminder na. Send a reminder. Kung informal, pwedeng text, pwedeng email. But if hindi pa rin nagre-reply, you send a formal, ibig sabihin written, na duly received by them, demanding for payment. Kunyari, walang lockout provision. After ko mag-serve ng letter, nilagyan ko na ng poster sa pinto. Ano nalagay mo dito? Hindi nagbabayad ng renta to.
Well, the notice is a notice to pay the rent or a notice to, it's really a final demand to pay, no?
Okay.
Oo. So, if hindi pa rin mag-comply, in case of land, it's 15 days. In case of building, so for example, condo, 5 days, then you can already file an unlawful detainer case.
Attorney, I mean, let's be realistic, di ba? Parang sabihin natin, natin, swerte na tayo if they acknowledge and they exit, di ba?
Yeah.
And they say thank you to you, na parang thank you, na-appreciate ko, you let me stay 2 months, pasensya na kayo, talagang ano. But not everybody's like that, di ba mga audience? Yung iba, sila pa yung matapang. What, I mean, you mentioned RTC, ganon, but they are all paperworks eh. The not paying tenant is still inside. Where will that, I mean, what will that court in effect, parang may police ba na darating?
Oh, okay. So, once you file a case, actually you can file a petition in court to have yung injunction, meaning ibibigay ulit sa yung property, no? So the court, with the power of the court, syempre utusan niya yung sheriff. It will be assisted, you will be assisted in in returning to you your property. So that's the beauty of going to the court kung talagang sobrang matigas yung yung tenant.
Barangay ba? Ang barangay ba is helpful? Do you go to barangay for help?
Yes. So yung barangay, they're very helpful naman. So there are some instances na it's within their jurisdiction. So kahit naman wala, they assist. Actually, ang maganda sa barangay is that there's a sense of authority din doon sa barangay. And syempre, yung sa lessee, mahiya din naman sila na pumupunta doon yung barangay and they're being subpoenaed by the barangay to attend a hearing, etc. For you to ensure that you have a security deposit. Why? A security deposit is a guarantee that the lessee will take care of the property, will honor the provisions of the contract. So at the end of the lease term, the security guarantee will also compensate you to clean the unit, the property, in case it wasn't turned over in a clean manner. Second is to replace or restore furniture that was damaged. And typical provision in a security deposit is that it will answer for all the damage dun sa unit.
Ito magandang question, anonymous, pero baliktad naman, siya naman ang tenant. 5 months na silang delay kasi na-affect yung business nila, open close. So pero tumatakbo pa daw yung rent nila kahit na hindi sila nag-open.
Oo, on the tenant side, unfortunately, on the side of the law, wala masyadong protection. Kasi especially right now during the pandemic, no? So I suppose it's a commercial property kasi business.
Office.
So talagang tuloy yan. But there are several instances, parang ang dami naman ngayon na lessor na instead of parang losing their tenant, they would give discount instead. So for example, the property is being leased out for 100,000. Since hindi kaya ng property nung lessee, they would give 30 or 50% discount. Some instances, they are just collecting 30% of the original rent just to keep the tenant. So it's more of siguro negotiations na lang or pakiusap na lang with the landlord. One
more, pinarent ko sa tenant ko. Walang sublease clause, pinasublease niya to an illegal person or entity, illegal. Ngayon, ayaw umalis. How do you deal with that?
Ayun na nga, yun yung problema. Kasi the fact na nandun yung walang sublease clause, ibig sabihin, inaalaw mo mag-sublease. Nung nag-sublease siya, that's valid. Pero kung illegal yung sublease, meaning kunwari meron namang illegal activity yon, pwede mo siyang paalisin kasi why? Because yung acts nung sublessee is also acts of your lessee. So
okay.
It violates the main contract. It's just that yun nga, hindi na iwasan. If you have a prohibition against subleasing, dapat hindi na nangyari yung ganong instance.
Who do you go to if you are in that situation? Police ba? Barangay ba? Admin ng building?
First, admin ng building.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way. If they're not helpful, you can go to the barangay. Okay. No? Oo. It's not a police matter. So after that, you go to court kung talagang wala na. Oo.
Okay.
Paminsan, a police can help. Why? Takot. Yung panakot lang. Pero it's in a legal process, it's not really a police matter.